Hey guys, Naterz here, and over the last couple of weeks I have been on a kick about video game characters for MultiVersus. They just have so much potential, and I feel that many people don't even realize it. One character that I think has the potential to be the most unique character for the game would have to be the Knight from Joust. Before you click off the video, please let me explain. The Knight comes from an arcade game called Joust. Joust was very popular in the 80s and was the 10th highest grossing arcade game in 1983, placing just behind Donkey Kong. But what most people don't realize is that the Knight actually has a lot of moveset potential. This may be surprising, as arcade games don't always have a lot to work with, especially not Joust, where there is absolutely no fighting mechanics at all. All you had was a joystick and a flap button. Nothing like Mortal Kombat, which had buttons for kicks, punches, blocks, and much more. We all know someone like Scorpion has insane moveset potential because he is from a fighting game. The Knight, however, would actually be pretty easy to make a moveset for, in my opinion. I think that his lance would have to be a big part of his moveset, but he actually does have a lot more to work with other than that. So in this video, I will be going over a moveset for the Knight, costume potential, and some other general thoughts. Twitter tends to be a place where I am pretty active, and tends to be the same with most of the MultiVersus community, so it's no surprise that I see a lot of movesets made by multiple people across the community. One of the best, in my opinion, would have to be from Bakken Connor from Twitter. Forgive me if I botched the name pronunciation, Connor. Connor has made dozens of movesets, ranging from Generator Rex to Lion-O to Osmosis Jones, all the way to Frankenstein from DC. So when Connor reached out to me and asked if I had any ideas or input for a moveset for the Knight, I was extremely happy to help. I gave my ideas as to what I thought he should have in his moveset, and he did the rest. Here is Connor's final product. I think that Connor implemented the Knight amazingly, so I wanted to go over it for a video. There are a couple things that I would change if I myself were making the moveset, but I will get into that in a bit. One of my favorite things about Connor's concepts is that he makes perks for each character as well. So when I talk about a move that has a perk tied to it, I'll go over the perk as well. Firstly though, I'll talk about the passive ability that Connor gave to the Knight. He called it Flap. The Knight's jump is very short, but he has infinite jumps. After being in the air for 10 seconds, his weight increases over time. When I first started reading it, I was like, wow, that is really overpowered. But then I got to the weight gaining bit. I actually love this idea. I think that it is a great way to make the Knight feel in character, as the Knight did have infinite jumps in the Joust game. Once again, you only had a joystick and a flat button, so I think that it fits the Knight amazingly. You may have to balance it a little bit, maybe 10 seconds is too much to give him in the air, and he really needs 5 or something. Either way, I think that it works and would be a neat implementation. But let's get into his actual moveset now. In order to go over some of his other moves, I am going to go a bit out of order from what I normally do. Normally, when I make movesets, I go over their dash attack and then their regular attacks first. For the Knight, I am going to go over his neutral special and then go in that order. So, for the Knight's neutral special, he would change the mount that he is riding on. The Knight would spawn in regularly on an ostrich, but with his neutral special in both the air and the ground, the Knight switches his mount from the ostrich to a Pegasus for 30 seconds. The Pegasus is heavier and slower, but deals increased damage. The move would also go on a cooldown when it is finished. Now, this move comes from Joust 2. In Joust 2, you can freely change from the ostrich mount to the Pegasus. The Pegasus is much slower and very heavy in the air, and in the game it says that it is more powerful for enemies on the ground. In Joust, that doesn't mean a ton, but I think this could be implemented into MultiVersus amazingly. The ostrich mount is fast, light, but not super powerful. It can rack up damage, but that's about it. The Pegasus, on the other hand, is slower and dangerous dangerous to take off the stage. But if you manage to get a couple good hits on the opponent, it will be sure to kill at high percentages. Originally, I was thinking that this move would not have a cooldown at all, but the more I think about it, the more I actually like the cooldown on the Pegasus. It makes the player have to strategize a bit more on when to use it, and it would be probably a bit more balanced. Now, because of this move, some of his other moves will be affected depending on which mount that he has on at that moment. Now that I have gone over the big gameplay changing move in his arsenal, I'll go over his regular attacks. Firstly though, Connor does not include dash attacks in his movesets. This is most likely due to their late inclusion in the game. I could be wrong, but I believe Connor has made this template before the dash attacks were announced. Either way, for the knight's dash attack, I think the mount could slam forward with its head, doing a headbutt. If you perform this with the ostrich, it would cover more ground. If you do it with the Pegasus, he would travel a lot shorter, but his dash attack would deal more damage. Next is the knight's neutral grounded attack. Connor calls this one Joust, and for it, the knight charges his lance and lunges forward with it on release. He is able to move freely while charging. As many people would expect, the knight will use his lance in a lot of moves, but he is not limited to it. If a character has a weapon, of course they are going to use it in their moveset, but the fun thing about the knight is that there are, and really is, more that you can draw from the games. We will get into most of those when we get back to his specials though. For the knight's side grounded attack, Connor calls it flightless, not fightless. The knight stabs with his lance and then his mount pecks twice, followed by a swipe with the knight's lance for a 3-hit combo. So I'm going to add on to this a little. The ostrich, when using this move, will peck, but the Pegasus could maybe bite, followed by the knight swiping his lance. Once again, the Pegasus's bite would deal more damage than the ostrich's pecks. Next is the knight's up-grounded attack. Connor calls it Have At Thee. It's pretty simple, as the knight would thrust upward with his lance. I don't think this move needs more explained about it, as it is pretty self-explanatory. For the knight's down-grounded attack, Connor calls it Head in the Sand / Stable Stomp. So this move varies depending on the mount that you currently have. If you have the ostrich, it would bury its head into the sand, breaking armor. If you have the Pegasus equipped, however, it would stomp on the ground, spiking enemies if they are hit by it. This could be good to use on the edge of the stage if players are trying to recover. Now we can get into the knight's aerial attacks, which there are only 2 of. The knight's neutral and up attack is the same as the grounded version, but for the knight's side aerial attack, he would swing his lance forward in a downward arc. Once again, this is pretty self-explanatory. Finally, to round off his attacks, we have his down aerial attack. I do believe that there is a typo in it, which I will address in a second. Connor calls it Mounted Combatant. It reads, the knight's mount pecks downward at an angle while he, and here's the typo, I believe it should say stabs, downward in the opposite direction. So this move would cover both sides of the knight, which I think is pretty cool. Now once again, I'll add that if you do not have the ostrich mount, but instead are on the Pegasus would probably have a differing move. Maybe it could slam its wings downward in the air. Maybe it could even launch opponents underneath the Pegasus downward, as I'd imagine the Pegasus's wings are pretty powerful and would send a lot of force downward. That rounds off the knight's attacks. By now you can probably see that he really is able to be implemented into MultiVersus very well. However, I believe that his specials are where he gets fun. We already went over his neutral special, which was the mount changing move. So let's go over his side grounded special. For it, the knight would throw an egg projectile. If the egg lands on a platform, it spawns a ninja for an assist. This once again comes from Joust 2. In Joust, when you kill an enemy, they drop an egg. Joust 2 implements a feature where if the egg sits on the ground for long enough, it will spawn a warrior. The warrior will walk back and forth on the platform that it is on. In MultiVersus, it wouldn't take time for the egg to hatch. It would simply just break open when it collides with the stage. For people who play Smash, this warrior would work similar to how a Mecha Koopa probably would. Except, other than it exploding, it would probably simply just despawn. It wouldn't specifically go after and target the opponent, but it would walk back and forth on the stage, damaging opponents who collide with it. For the Knight's up grounded special, the mount would leap high in the air without using a jump. The move would be chargeable, where the longer you charge it, the higher you jump. I can pretty easily imagine the ostrich doing this, but I also think that the Pegasus could do it as well. Actual horses can jump pretty high, so I don't think it is that out of the question. This would be a good way to get the Knight into the air quickly, allowing for him to damage his opponent. The Knight's down grounded special does actually have a perk tied to it. Firstly though, I'll go over the regular move. For it, the Knight would place a pool of lava on the stage that stays there for 10 seconds. Enemies that walk through it are ignited. With the perk, however, it implements the lava troll from the Joust games. The first enemy to walk through the lava trap is grabbed by the hand of a lava troll and is stunned. Lava is a big part of Joust and is on the majority of the stages. On some of the stages, if you near the lava, a hand will come up and grab you and pull you into the lava. This is referred to as a lava troll. I do like this idea, but I do wonder if it would be better to just make the perk work as his actual move. I say this only because I'm not sure how weird it would look if he placed a pool of lava on the ground. Maybe he could just pour it out of a bucket or something, although in real life it would probably burn through the bucket. I'm thinking of like Minecraft mechanics or something. That could make a bit of sense to me, but I'm sure that the devs could make it work and not have it look weird. That wraps up his grounded specials, and we only have 2 moves left to go over, as his neutral and side special are the same in the air. The Knight's up special also has a perk attached to it. For the base move, the Knight tosses his lance upward. The Knight would then have to try and catch it when it falls if it does not hit an opponent. If the perk is attached though, if the Knight catches the lance when it falls through the air, his cooldowns will be reduced. This perk is called Style Points. I actually really like this perk, and I think that it would be fun to use. Although I could see people abusing it a little and using the move with no opponents around, and then catching it so that they can use their Pegasus sooner. Either way, I think that this is a neat idea. For the final move of the Knight's arsenal, the Knight's mount would flail its legs, damaging enemies hit. If he lands on the stage during the move, he dashes forward, knocking up enemies hit. Although I can imagine this much better with the ostrich, I do think that it could also work with the Pegasus. So that wraps up his moves, but we do still have things to talk about. Firstly, there is one perk that I have yet to mention. For it, the Knight's steed would gain double speed on the ground. If you like playing fast characters, this perk would be the one for you. Next, we have skins to go over. Connor gave the Knight 6 skins, and I have 15 more to add to that. I got all of my skins from official promotional artwork. Connor got some neat ones from fan art and other things though. The first one he calls the White Knight. Right next to it is what he calls the Death Knight. Both of these come from the same drawing. I've tried to track down where this originated from, but I believe it was first posted on Reddit and is not an official drawing. The next skin is also in the same boat. Connor calls it Space Knight and comes from fan art made by Ben Walker. It is a neat skin idea though, and I would like to see it get added if the Knight were to get into the game. The next Connor calls Lego and comes from Lego Dimensions. In LEGO Dimensions, you can play Joust, so this actually is an official design. If LEGO happens to make its way into MultiVersus, it could actually be pretty neat if this was a LEGO skin for the Knight. The next one is from Detective Comics number 67, and features the penguin riding an ostrich. Connor typically likes to do this where he takes other Warner characters as skins. I do think that it would be pretty neat, as the penguin's umbrella could serve as the lance. It could also be funny if there was also a skin of Wile E. Coyote riding the Roadrunner, as I feel like that could actually fit pretty well. Lastly, Connor features the Forever Knight from Ben 10. That wraps up everything that Connor did. Connor did an amazing job on this concept, and I'm super happy he reached out to me and allowed me to help. Once again, go follow him and look at his other concepts. Thanks once again, Connor, for allowing me to cover it in a video. But let's now go over some of the other skins that the knight could have, as I have found 15 other official looks that the knight has had over time. The first of which is what I'd like to be his base look. This appears in 2 promotional artworks, and is probably my favorite look for the knight. He has some wings on his helmet, and almost seems to have a visor similar to Cyclops from Marvel. His ostrich is wearing armor as well. The next couple looks all come from the same image. The first one, the gold one, has the knight appear like an actual knight dressed in armor that you would typically see a knight wearing. His ostrich, however, is very unique, and it has some robotic looking legs. It makes it look very futuristic. The next one is similar, but now the knight is wearing blue armor and is riding a stork instead of an ostrich. This actually comes from the Player 2 variant in Joust. The stork does have robotic legs as well. Next are the villain knights. All of the villains ride vultures, which are some pretty cool implementations. But there are 3 different colors for the knights, ranging from blue to red to black. I think that these could actually be some really neat skins and would be a lot of fun. Next is from the Nintendo artwork. The ostrich seems to be more gray and blue in color, and the knight is wearing a lot less armor, as well as it being in all gray. The next 2 are pretty simple. One features a red knight riding a yellow and cream-colored ostrich. The other features a blue knight riding an orange and yellow ostrich. The next costume I can picture being a fan favorite. It has a dark-looking knight riding a dark-looking ostrich. I actually really like the look, and it reminds me of some medieval type thing, and I think that it would be pretty popular. The next 2 are actually from the Joust board game, which exists for some reason. Sadly, I don't have pictures of all the characters that appear in the game, but the 2 that I do have are Killer Kima and her steed Mean Steve, and Sir Dingle Digsby and his steed Martin. There are 2 more as well, which can sort of be seen in this screenshot here. The next comes from the box art of the board game. This looks very similar to the original design, but this time the ostrich is more black instead of white, the traditional ostrich colors. The man also appears to be wielding a shield, which the knight actually does in most of the artwork of him. So maybe the knight could even have some attacks that feature the shield. That could be neat. The second to last design comes from a man named Kyle Brown. Kyle did some designs for the Ready Player One movie, which was originally supposed to feature Joust in it. So I think that it could be neat to use some of those designs that he originally made that were going to be featured in the movie, as they would have been official if they would have been seen in the movie. The final skin comes from a Joust ad that has a dark knight riding an almost robotic looking bird. This might be my favorite skin that is not the base one, as I think that it looks super unique. So as you can tell, the knight definitely has costume potential, which is always a good thing for a character to have. I think that a fighter riding something would make for a really neat character, and it's something that we could see in Spear and Fang, Paperboy, and even Lyra and Yurik Burnison. I think that the knight, though, could be a perfect inclusion for the game, and would capture MultiVersus wackiness very well. I'd also absolutely love to see the knight in the MultiVersus character style. With that, I think we will end the video here. The knight has way more potential than people give him credit for, and if there is a video that a dev from MultiVersus sees, I hope that it is this one, as I would absolutely fight very hard to get this character into the game. If you enjoyed the video, consider subscribing. It would encourage me to make future content. I plan on uploading another video in 2 weeks, as I upload every other Tuesday. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all next time.